Yo, Steelers Nation, stop everything you're doing right now. I mean it. Put down your phone, close that other tab. Whatever else you had planned for the next few minutes can wait, because what I'm about to break down for you today is absolutely massive. We're talking franchise-altering, decade-defining, pick your jaw up off the floor type of news coming out of Pittsburgh. And if you're a die-hard black and gold fan, you need to hear every single word of this. Before we dive in, smash that subscribe button right now. We drop Steelers content every single day, and with everything that's about to unfold, you cannot afford to miss a single update. Trust me on this one. Let's get into it. All right, here's the deal. There are two completely separate storylines developing in Pittsburgh right now, two different paths this franchise could take. And when you zoom out and look at both of them together, you start to realize something that should send chills down your spine. The Pittsburgh Steelers are standing at a crossroads, not a minor fork in the road, not some little decision about depth players or special teams. We're talking about a fundamental pivot point that will determine what this team looks like for the next 5, maybe even 10 years. On one side, we've got aggressive offensive upgrades being discussed, bold moves, swing for the fences type of decisions that could completely transform how this team attacks opposing defenses. On the other side, we've got whispers about potential blockbuster trades on defense, moves that would shake this fan base to its core, moves that would signal a complete philosophical shift in how this organization operates. And caught right in the middle of all this is a new head coach trying to establish his vision, a front office evaluating every single asset on the roster, and millions of fans holding their breath, waiting to see what happens next. Let's start with the offensive side of things, because this is where things get really exciting. If you've watched this team struggle over the past couple of seasons, you already know what the biggest problem has been. The Steelers simply haven't had enough firepower in the passing game. It doesn't matter who's taking snaps under center. It doesn't matter what scheme they're running. When you don't have elite playmakers on the outside, you're always going to be limited in what you can accomplish. You're always going to be fighting uphill against defenses that can afford to stack the box and dare you to beat them through the air. And look, the front office isn't blind to this. They've seen the same tape we've all seen. They've watched this offense sputter in critical moments. They've watched other teams in the AFC North load up with weapons while Pittsburgh has tried to piece things together with inconsistent options at receiver. Something has to change, something big, and apparently that change might be coming sooner than anyone expected. Here's where it gets absolutely wild. There's a prediction making the rounds right now that Pittsburgh could actually trade up in the 2026 NFL Draft to go grab a potential franchise-caliber wide receiver, not sitting at pick 21 and hoping someone falls into their lap, not playing it conservative and taking the best available player regardless of need. We're talking about an aggressive, calculated, statement-making move up the board to go secure the guy they want. The name being connected to this scenario is Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. And listen, if you haven't watched this kid play yet, you need to go pull up some film immediately after this video, because Tyson is not some raw project who might develop into something useful 3 years down the road. This is a polished, NFL-ready receiver who has legitimate #1 potential written all over him. Let me hit you with some numbers real quick, because the production speaks for itself. In his standout season at Arizona State, Tyson hauled in 75 receptions for over 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's not stat padding against cupcake opponents. That's consistent, high-level production against real competition week after week. That's a guy who showed up when the lights were brightest and delivered when his team needed him most. But here's the thing about Tyson that makes him such a perfect fit for what Pittsburgh is trying to build. It's not just about the numbers, it's about how he plays the game. This kid is a smooth route runner with elite body control. He's got a catch radius that allows him to go up and high point the football in contested situations. He attacks the ball in the air instead of waiting for it to come to him. Those are the traits that separate good college receivers from guys who actually make it in the league. Those are the characteristics that translate directly to Sunday production. And here's a detail that's going to make every Steelers fan absolutely lose their mind. Jordan Tyson was coached by Hines Ward. Yeah, that Hines Ward, one of the greatest receivers in Pittsburgh Steelers history, a guy who embodied everything this franchise stands for. Toughness, grit, relentless effort on every single play. Ward helped develop Tyson during his time at Arizona State, and you know that connection is going to carry serious weight with this organization. You know, the front office is going to factor that relationship into their evaluation of his character and his fit with this team. But wait, there's even more to love about this kid. The toughness reports on Tyson are through the roof. There were stretches this past season where he was dealing with hamstring injuries in both legs. And you know what he did? He suited up anyway. He went out there and competed. He didn't make excuses. He didn't sit on the sideline feeling sorry for himself. He found a way to contribute despite not being 100%. That's the kind of blue-collar, lunch pail mentality that Pittsburgh has always valued. That's the kind of player this fan base rallies around. Now let's talk about how this trade scenario could actually play out. The prediction suggests that Pittsburgh could package their 21st overall pick along with a third-round selection to move up into the mid-teens and secure Tyson before another team snatches him. When you consider that the Steelers currently hold 12 total picks in this draft, that's absolutely a move they can afford to make. They've got the draft capital, they've got the flexibility. The only question is whether they've got the willingness to pull the trigger when the moment comes. And here's what makes this scenario even more electric. The 2026 NFL Draft is being held in Pittsburgh. Can you imagine the scene if this franchise makes a bold move like this in front of their home crowd? Picture it, the entire city watching, thousands of fans packed into the venue, the anticipation building, and then the announcement comes through that the Steelers have traded up and selected their potential future #1 receiver. The place would absolutely erupt. That would be the kind of moment that defines an era. That would be the kind of statement that sends shockwaves through the entire league. From a bigger picture perspective, if the Steelers pull off this move, it tells everyone exactly where this organization's head is at. It says they're serious about fixing the offense immediately. It says they're done being patient and hoping things work out. It says they're willing to be aggressive to give whoever is playing quarterback the best possible supporting cast. And in today's NFL, where the passing game dominates everything, having a true #1 receiver isn't a luxury anymore. It's a necessity. Think about what adding a dynamic playmaker like Tyson would do for this offense. Think about how defenses would have to adjust their game plans. Right now, opposing coordinators can scheme against Pittsburgh because they don't have that one guy who can take over a game by himself. They don't have that receiver who demands constant double coverage and opens up everything else. Adding Tyson changes that equation completely. Suddenly, you've got a legitimate vertical threat who can stretch the field and create space underneath. Suddenly, you've got a red zone weapon who can go up and win 50-50 balls when it matters most. Suddenly, you've got exactly the kind of explosive playmaker that Mike McCarthy has always loved to feature in his offensive systems. As a fan, this is the kind of move you dream about. We've been waiting for the Steelers to add that true game-changing presence at receiver. We've been waiting for them to stop playing it safe and start taking calculated risks. If they actually go through with this, it could completely transform the ceiling of what this offense is capable of achieving. But hold on, because now we need to talk about the other side of this story. And honestly, this is where things get complicated. This is where the conversation takes a turn that's going to hit different for a lot of you. Because while we're discussing exciting offensive additions and building toward the future, there's another headline floating around right now that involves one of the most beloved players this franchise has had in recent memory. We need to talk about TJ Watt. Yeah, you heard that right. TJ Watt, the same TJ Watt who has been the undisputed face of this defense for years, the same TJ Watt who has terrorized opposing quarterbacks and made offensive coordinators lose sleep, the same TJ Watt who embodies everything the Pittsburgh Steelers stand for on the defensive side of the football. There are actual trade discussions happening in media circles right now about the possibility of Pittsburgh moving on from their superstar edge rusher. Now, let me be crystal clear before we go any further. This isn't some official report from a league insider saying a deal is done. This isn't Adam Schefter breaking news that Watt has been traded, but these conversations aren't coming out of nowhere. There's real context behind why this discussion is even happening. So let's break it down. TJ Watt is 30 years old. He's carrying a cap hit of roughly $42 million per year over the next 3 seasons. That's a massive chunk of salary cap space committed to one player. And when you're a team that's trying to retool under new leadership, when you're trying to reshape the roster and build something sustainable for the future, those numbers become impossible to ignore. Every dollar you spend on one player is a dollar you can't spend somewhere else. That's just the reality of operating in a salary cap league. One report that keeps surfacing suggests that the most Pittsburgh could realistically get back for Watt right now is a second-round pick. Let that sink in for a moment, a second-round pick for one of the best pass rushers in professional football. That tells you exactly where the market stands when you're talking about trading a player of Watt's age and contract situation. Teams are factoring in the years of wear and tear, they're factoring in the money they'd have to commit, and that's driving the return value down significantly. The team being connected to Watt in these discussions is the Buffalo Bills. And when you think about it from Buffalo's perspective, the fit makes a ton of sense. The Bills have been searching for a dominant edge presence for years. They took swings before, like the Von Miller signing, but they haven't had that true game-wrecking force off the edge consistently. Their defensive front has solid pieces, but nothing at the level of what TJ Watt brings to the table. If you pair Watt with Greg Rousseau in Buffalo, that defensive line becomes absolutely terrifying. That's the kind of pass rush combination that can completely take over playoff games and change the trajectory of a franchise. But from Pittsburgh's perspective, this conversation isn't just about salary cap math and draft pick compensation. This is about identity. This is about what the Pittsburgh Steelers stand for as an organization. TJ Watt has been more than just a great player for this team. He's been the heartbeat of the entire defense. He's been the guy who sets the tone every single week. He's been the standard that every other player on that roster measures themselves against. Trading him wouldn't just be a football transaction. It would be a statement about the direction this franchise is heading. It would signal that a new era is truly beginning. And that's exactly why these two storylines together are so significant. That's why you need to pay close attention to everything happening in Pittsburgh right now. On one hand, you've got discussions about aggressively trading up to add a dynamic young receiver. That's a move that screams we're building toward the future. That's a move that embraces a new philosophy. That's a move that invests in speed, explosiveness, and the kind of weapons that can elevate an offense to championship levels. On the other hand, you've got serious whispers about potentially moving one of the most important defensive players this franchise has had in over a decade. That signals something completely different. That says the organization is thinking longer term than anyone anticipated. That says the old guard might be giving way to something entirely new. When you put those two things together, you're looking at a franchise standing at a genuine pivot point. This isn't random offseason speculation. This isn't media members creating drama for clicks. This is a real evaluation happening behind closed doors about what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to look like moving forward. And as a fan, that realization is both incredibly exciting and deeply unsettling at the same time. The Mike McCarthy factor adds another layer to all of this. McCarthy came to Pittsburgh with a specific vision for what he wants this offense to look like. Throughout his career, he's been a coach who values explosive playmakers and vertical threats. He wants to push the ball downfield and create chunk plays in the passing game. Trading up for a receiver like Jordan Tyson fits that philosophy perfectly. That's exactly the kind of move you'd expect McCarthy to advocate for behind closed doors. But on defense, McCarthy inherited a situation he didn't create. The contracts are already on the books. The players are already in place. The identity has already been established over years of building. He has to figure out how to work within that framework while also putting his own stamp on this football team. If the Steelers do decide to explore moving Watt, it would signal that McCarthy has significant influence over roster construction decisions. It would mean this front office is willing to make uncomfortable choices to accelerate whatever vision they're building toward. Right now, Steelers Nation is absolutely split on all of this. Some fans are thrilled about the possibility of trading up for a receiver. They see it as the aggressive, forward-thinking move this franchise has been hesitant to make in recent years. They're tired of watching Pittsburgh play it safe, while other organizations swing big and add game-changing talent. Other fans are completely horrified at the idea of trading TJ Watt. They view him as untouchable. They see him as the kind of generational player you build around, not the kind of guy you ship off for draft picks. The thought of watching Watt in another uniform makes them physically ill. And then there's a third group trying to process both scenarios simultaneously. They understand that football is a business. They understand that smart roster construction sometimes requires painful decisions. But emotionally, it's incredibly hard to reconcile the idea of adding exciting young talent while potentially losing the heart and soul of everything this defense has been for years. From my perspective, here's what I think is actually happening. This front office is doing exactly what you'd want a well-run organization to do. They're evaluating everything. They're exploring every possible scenario. They're running the numbers on what it would cost to trade up in the draft. They're gauging what kind of return they could realistically get for their most valuable assets. That doesn't mean they're definitely going to make any of these moves, but it means they're being thorough. It means they're being strategic. It means they're not letting emotion cloud their judgment. Honestly, that should give Steelers fans confidence, even if it also makes them nervous. You want a front office willing to have difficult conversations. You want decision-makers thinking 3 and 4 years down the road instead of just focusing on next season. You want an organization that's prepared to be bold when the situation demands it. Whatever happens over the next few weeks and months, one thing is absolutely certain. This isn't about small tweaks around the edges. This isn't about adding depth pieces and hoping for incremental improvement. This is about direction-defining decisions that will shape the trajectory of this franchise for years to come. And when Pittsburgh commits to something, they don't do it halfway. That's never been the style of this organization. So here's my question for you, Steelers Nation. What do you actually want this team to do? Do you want them to trade up and grab that explosive young receiver who could transform the offense into something special? Do you think they should even consider moving TJ Watt if the right opportunity presents itself? Or do you want them to keep the core together and take one more shot with the group they have? There's no perfect answer here. Every path comes with risks. Every decision has consequences that will ripple through this franchise for years, not weeks. But that's exactly what makes this offseason so compelling. That's what makes being a Steelers fan so intense right now. The future is literally being shaped in real time, and every single one of us has a stake in how it turns out. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from the entire Steelers community on this. Should they go all in on offense? Should they protect the defensive identity at all costs? Should they try to somehow do both? Let me know where you stand, because these are the conversations that actually matter. And if you haven't subscribed yet, Seriously? What are you waiting for? Hit that button right now and turn on notifications. We're covering every single development coming out of Pittsburgh, and with everything that's unfolding, you cannot afford to be out of the loop. This is the most pivotal offseason this franchise has had in years. The McCarthy era is officially underway, and whatever happens next is going to echo through Steelers history for a very long time. Stay locked in, Steelers Nation. The biggest moves might just be getting started.